very much for coming along, guys. For those of you who already run, and for those who just came, thanks for joining us. My name's James, if I haven't met you yet, and this is Dan. Dan's one of my colleagues here at Star, and that's Damien up the back working the camera. He's the big boss here at Star. Quick thanks to the team at Physio for helping organise this. John and Neil, we ran with, and Bill has just walked in. Pretty excited to be able to work with you guys this year. I think there's hopefully a lot of good that can come out of it, and we're kind of happy to be here and try and offer advice where we can, and hopefully it's a pretty simple and effective advice for you guys. This is going to be a pretty casual and informal session, so any questions along the way, just make sure you stick your hand up or shout out. Don't need to wait till the end or write notes or anything. So what I wanted to chat to you guys about today was about running injury prevention. Okay, so we're 8 weeks out from the Physio cert. Hopefully most of us have entered, and it's that time where we all start getting a bit nervous, and maybe the sun's coming out a bit more. We start running a bit harder, and we start to get sore. So before we get to that point, I wanted to try and give between myself and Dan some really nice simple bits of advice on how to avoid getting to that annoying spot a few weeks out where stuff starts getting sore and you can't run as much as you like. So really quickly about us, we're both physios, obviously. We both work here. We both run and come from a running and triathlon and athletic background, and we've been really fortunate to work with a lot of endurance athletes over the years from all different levels, from kind of weekend warriors right up to elite level athletes. And we get to work with a few pretty awesome physios here who work in the kind of research world to do with running injuries and endurance performance injuries and stuff like that. So we're in a really cool spot, and we're really lucky to be surrounded by the people we are. It's just some pictures of us doing some triathlons. That's the only photo I could find of Dan where he had a top on. Sorry about that. Yeah. A really quick summary of what we're going to chat about tonight. First of all, a little bit of good news and a little bit of bad news about running injuries. I'm going to burst a couple of little bubbles about things that maybe don't help prevent injuries. Then I'll pass over to Dan, and he'll give you guys some really nice simple bits of advice on how you can prevent injuries. And then we might have a little bit of time for some bonus material at the end, as well as questions, obviously. So, first of all, the bad news. The bad news is that of all the kind of recreational sports, runners get injured more than anyone else. All right, so about 60% of runners wind up with some kind of obese injury, which is a lot higher than any other kind of recreational sport. The most common ones being knee pain, probably a little bit more in girls and guys, some kind of shin pain or calf pain, and ankle pain or Achilles pain, plantar fasciitis, stuff like that. The other bit of bad news is, despite the fact that some kind of fancy technology that keeps coming up on the market once a week promising to cure all your injuries and prevent injuries, we still get injured just as much as we used to. So we're kind of not getting much better at that. We're all still getting injured as runners. The good news is there's some really, really simple and proven ways to reduce the risk of running injuries, and they're really, really simple and easy. And the even better news is, if you follow those rules, they actually make you faster runners as well. Okay, so they don't only prevent injuries, they make you a better runner too. So I'm going to have a quick chat about running shoes. So when I was running from a really young age, I would always go to a shoe shop, and they would look at my foot, they'd make me walk across the plate or run on a treadmill and put me into kind of a pigeonhole of what kind of foot I had or how I ran, and then they'd give me a shoe based on that model. Okay, so I'm sure lots of you guys have done this, and I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars buying the really expensive shoes, because those are the ones that had the right amount of arch support for me. Unfortunately, this model of kind of matching your foot to a shoe doesn't seem to stop us getting injured. Okay, so you can run in a shoe that by all degrees is not at all right for you, and you're no more likely to get injured. Okay. The other things that probably don't make a big difference is there's been a big push lately with kind of the maximal cushioning shoes over there on the left and the kind of minimal shoes over here on the right. Now, I'm not saying they're useless, but people that wear those get injured just as much as people who wear those, just as much as people who wear regular running shoes. Okay, so it doesn't really matter what kind of shoe you're wearing, it's not really helping prevent injuries. There is potential there if you have certain kind of injuries to change your footwear and potentially offload those injuries, but certainly if you're injury free, it doesn't really matter what kind of shoe you wear, as long as it's comfortable. So I suppose that's a bit of good news. Second thing, stretching. Might do a lot of good stuff, doesn't really prevent running injuries. Okay, stretching before sessions, stretching after sessions, stretching on your lounge room floor at home. A pretty nice study showed that people who stretch regularly have about a 4% injury risk reduction, which, okay, like it's a little bit, but there's a few other things that make it a much bigger difference, as you can see. Okay, so if you've got a half an hour stretching routine because you're trying to prevent running injuries, spend that half an hour reading a book or just going to sleep. Foot strike patterns, another kind of hot topic in the running world. Heel strikers versus forefoot strikers. You already know what I'm about to say. They both get injured just the same amount. Okay, so it doesn't really matter. Don't let someone tell you, oh, you've got to run this way because if you keep running the way you're doing, you've got to get injured. They both get injured. Again, just like the running shoes, if you do have a specific kind of injury, you might be able to change the way you run and reduce the load on an area. So what is interesting to note is that people who heel strike tend to get injuries in different areas compared to the people who forefoot strike. Okay? They both still get injured, just kind of different kinds of injuries. So we can change your running style and your foot strike pattern to maybe offload the injury that you have. But overall, it doesn't matter how you run, it's not going to reduce the risk of injury. Compression guns. Again, I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars on compression guns over the years, and I was very pissed off when I found out they're probably not doing anything with injury risk reduction. They might be able to reduce a bit of muscle soreness after a session, okay? But that's about it, all right? Unless you don't count DVTs as an injury, okay? So they can reduce the risk of deep vein thrombosis on planes, but they can't reduce the risk of a calf tear or a sore knee or an Achilles injury or something like that. So it depends. Ice baths and cryotherapy, another thing that I spent countless hours doing. Again, probably doesn't help much. All right, there was actually a really interesting study that that Dan just brought to my attention before, where they had a group of runners after a session either be in an ice bath for 5 minutes or go for a 5-minute really easy jog. There was no difference in injury risk between the two groups, but the people who went for a 5-minute easy jog ended up with more lean muscle mass at the end. So, like, just go for a jog instead. It's kind of a bit of a waste of your time. It does have like an analgesic effect, so if you're specifically sore, like your ankle blows up or something like that, put some ice on it, it brings the pain down for a few hours, but it's only a temporary analgesic effect. Okay, so if you're going to, you might need to kind of get into one of those cryotherapy chambers once every 4 hours if you're trying to reduce your pain. Again, just better ways to spend your time and money if you're trying to prevent injuries. Self-massage, myofascial release. This is the one where literally a new thing comes on the market once a week, guys. It's a bit of a craze, and there's probably benefits to some of this kind of stuff sometimes, okay? So if you have specific injuries, like I know that if you have a bit of pain on the side of your knee, a bit of side of knee pain, a bit of self-massage through your quad muscles can help reduce the length of that injury by a little bit. But by and large, if you're just doing some of this stuff to try and prevent injury, that probably doesn't work too well. I only saw this one for the first time today, but don't quite know how to use it, but there's so much stuff out there. The general theory behind these kind of things, guys, is the thought is that there's a bit of scar tissue and adhesions that form in your muscles and the fascia that surrounds your muscles, and we think that if you do some of this self-massage and just kind of murder yourself with pain for half an hour, that it's going to break up some of those adhesions and scar tissue. The problem with that is we don't really actually know. No one's ever proven that there's these adhesions that can form in muscles or fascia, just like no one's ever proven that doing this can actually break them up. So it's like an assumption based on assumption, and there's just not really enough proof there. It's kind of like if I was to say that Santa's real and my source is Bigfoot. It's just a bit of a stretch, and again, there's probably better ways to spend your time. All right, so after berating a bunch of stuff and pissing everyone off because they spent so much time foam rolling, I'm going to pass over to Dan, and he's going to give you guys some really simple ways on how you can actually reduce the risk of injuries.
Easy. Well, thanks everyone for coming out tonight. I know Wednesday night, middle of the week, everyone's pretty busy, but great to see So many faces, it's more than one, which is on the short notice we had. So what I'm about to talk through now is a lot of stuff where look, I could talk for literally hours on each topic and each aspect. Hopefully, if you have some questions, please ask away, and we'll do our best to chat through things. But I've kind of skimmed the top of what I think is the most important element of the aspect we'll talk about, okay? So hopefully there's a couple of really easy yet positive steps we can take to reduce our injury risk and enjoy our running. At the end of the day, running is a great way to get outside. So number one, and I guess the most lowest hanging fruit, the most simple thing you can possibly do, is something called progressive overload. So don't do too much too soon is all I'm trying to say there. Has anyone watched the movie Free Solo with Alex Honnold? Yeah, pretty crazy stuff. Free soloing, the largest space in Yosemite National Park. So to put it in a relative sense, you wouldn't go to the hangout in Northbridge on a Tuesday night, feel pretty good, and then scale. I can't remember, climb, scale it the next day. So don't go from 0 to 100. Don't do, if you have one really, you go out for your first run, it feels fantastic. Don't go and do 10 times that the next day. Your injury risk does go up quite exponentially. The other point of that is actually don't do too little too soon either. So if you're running 150 k's a week or 100 k's a week, whatever it is, lots and lots of mileage, don't actually go from that to zero. So everyone actually talks about off season and doing nothing in the off season. Actually a little bit detrimental to things, and I guess tendon health would be an example there. That's a really nice one to think about in the literature there. So basically, don't increase your load by, we use the rule of 10%, so don't increase your overall load the next week by more than about 10%, 10 to 15% is the number. Similarly, don't reduce your load by more than 15 to 20%. Okay, so that's the lowest hanging fruit. So hopefully take away one point from my slides, take away that one. The next one is you want to prepare yourself for the situation ahead. So you're about to face a run. If you haven't run before, you're probably not going to be physically and I guess in essence mentally prepared for the task at hand. So the way we kind of go about this is, say if you're a runner and you want to get good at swimming, I want to do the Rottnest Channel swim next week. If I expose myself to one swim before that, I'm probably not going to be more physically and definitely mentally prepared for that task. So if just by running more and getting yourself out and moving and running, you're going to psychologically and physically prepare yourself for the run ahead. Okay, so prepare yourself for the demands required. If it's a running event, do some runs. If it's a swimming event, do some swims. Okay. Now, to draw your attention to, I guess in our world of physiotherapy, there's a lot of really good research coming out these days, and actually by a couple of our colleagues, to name a few, on strength training and running. So if I can just talk a little bit of details for a second from one really nice study that was done actually quite a few years ago, but still holds a kind of strong taste on what we preach in the clinic there. So they had two groups of elite cross-country runners, and there was about 18 people per group, so 36 people in the study, which is a pretty feasible or reasonable size for the group. They had a group of people do just their regular running training. So they gave both groups the same running program. So one group just did the running program, one group did the regular training plus a bit of strength work on the side. And it was a 9-week program, and they tested 5K running time at week 0, week 6, and week 9. And over the course of 9 weeks, they found out and saw that on average, so they're all about 18-ish minute runners, on average, the group who participated in strength training dropped their times to about 45 seconds. And that's by running the exact same amount, same mileage, same intensity as the other group. So if you're going to add one thing to your training, and this is kind of something to think about moving forward, is get yourself in the gym, push something heavy, do something heavy. And again, we can talk about this for hours there. But if you're looking to get that, not that magic pill, but something a bit extra to add to your running training that really is going to make a difference, there's really, really good research behind strength training and injury support. And basically, how it happens is lots of different things. One of the first things you notice is you get strong really quickly because the muscles fire evenly. The task itself, if you go, oh, what exercises should I do? Nigel, one of our colleagues, explains it nicely where you should have an exercise for your hip, your knee, your ankle. Keep it simple, push something heavy. Okay, so that's a really nice one to think about. Modifications to your running technique, again to touch on something similar with running shoes. So running shoes, if you have an injury, can be really handy to what we call shift loads and maybe offload a bit of a sore spot and things like that. Very similarly with regards to running for performance. So if you look at some of the world-class runners, I guess the best runner in the world, not MYOFASCIal, but Eliud Kipchoge, he runs hopefully 2 hours, sub 2 hours coming up. Steps per minute for him is about 180 steps per minute, so that's 60 each side. On average, the recreational runner was on about 157, 158, which is substantially less. Yes, we're running at a lower speed, but if there's one thing to think about run form-wise and technique-wise, a little bit of a faster cadence there. In a simple sense, if you're landing with a longer stride, you have your leg further out in front, which Jay as a maths teacher can tell us, it's a deceleration acceleration force for the body. So the further out it is, then the more deceleration you have going through the body, and therefore it will slow the momentum of the thing moving across the ground or across the gravity there. Okay, so pick up your cadence, guys. Get yourself in the gym, pick up the cadence. Some slightly higher hanging fruit now. We talk about a bit of sleep, nutrition, and hydration. There's a really nice study that came out that said that you have a 70% increase in injury risk if you get less than 8 hours a night. So who gets 8 hours a night? Put your hand up. Yeah, so something to think about. So if there's one thing to work on outside your training, I'm giving you lots of things here, but pick one and go with it. A bit more sleep. Okay, allow yourself to recover. You're putting yourself through the hard efforts, hard miles, getting out there running. Just allow the body to adapt and recover. Recovery is one of the best things to look at there. We talk about something called REDS or REDS, so relative energy deficiency in sport. We're talking about nutrition there. I'm not a nutritionist or dietitian. I'm sure Dave Bryant can chew your ear up a little bit more about specifics with nutrition. But from a physiotherapy point of view, we used to call this the female athlete triage. We would always have a number of physiotherapy professionals, a number of females come through the clinic who were not malnourished, but not eating enough for the physical demands of their sport. That's why you hear a lot of stories of elite women in sport, a lot of runners and things like that, having lots and lots of stress fractures and lots of injuries and things like that. It's not that they're doing anything wrong training-wise, it's that their energy physically doesn't have, the energy they're using is physically not the same as what they're putting into their body. You need to fuel your body. If you think of yourself as whatever car you want to think of, you've got to fuel the car as much as you fuel your body. So if you're going to use the car hard, you're going to run yourself hard, you've got to fuel yourself for the task ahead. And hydration comes into that as well. I'm sure you guys will probably know as much about hydration as most people, but basically there was a really nice study that came out, and it's to do with should you drink when you feel thirsty or should you drink a specific amount of fluid at a time. And from my understanding or brief understanding, Ange might be able to tell me, but if you're thirsty, then drink. That's basically it in endurance sport. Don't force liquid into your body. So keep it really simple there. I think that kind of sums up the talk there. Really keep it simple. The other thing is I'm going to rip off a little bit of a spill from one of the coaches. I'm sure you guys know of front runner sports. I'm going to rip off one of the spills there, which I thought was a really nice analogy. And running and training is all about building a house, okay? Each session you do, or each run you do, or strength work in the gym, whatever, or each nap you have, or whatever you eat, it's a brick in the house of success, or whatever you want to call it. This is actually the oldest brick house in America, according to Google Images. Basically, you can't have the house without the brick, and you can't have bricks without doing any sort of work. So if you expect, an amazing marathon time for yourself, but you haven't prepared yourself, you haven't been for the runs, you can't expect a really lovely house to come out of it. So take that in mind as you move forward. One of the hardest things with running is consistency, and one of the hardest things in sport is consistency, but it's also just a pure goal. If you can keep yourself going time after time, keeping it smart, relatively building your load, get yourself in the gym, that's where you build a 2-3 story house and where you get the numbers that you want to get. Running's not one of those sports, and nor is swimming or really anything like that, where if you do 1 or 2 sessions, then you're going to have a goal race, unless you're a sprinter. There's very large outliers. Genetics is a big factor at play there. We can talk about that later on. To summarise a bit of the talk tonight, guys, so the best ways to stay injury-free are really, really simple. Hopefully you've all taken away maybe 1 or 2 snippets of information, which is fantastic. You take 1 snippet away, snippet of information, it's keep it simple. Okay? There's various elements that play into injury risk. The guy at the shoe shop chewing your ear off about the new Brooks adrenaline and things like that. Listen to it, that's cool, but don't, put all your tomatoes in the same basket and type stuff. Just keep it simple. The eggs in one basket. I don't need tomatoes. Focus on what we call the low-hanging fruit, or the 10%ers rather than the 1%ers. Get the basic stuff right. Go for a run. Go for a couple of runs. Keep it consistent rather than thinking about, I need to, have a 52-gram gel and a 49-gram gel. Like, keep it simple there. If you're not sure, and thanks for coming to our clinic tonight, guys, so you know where it is. If you're not sure, get it checked by someone who knows. Look, we're all runners at the clinic, and we all have, we hope, quite a really good background with regards to research and employ some of the best, the best standards in the business with regards to using what we know evidence base is coming out. And what's really cool is the stuff we use hasn't been published yet because the guys who wrote it are our colleagues. And things like that. So we're very lucky and privileged here. So if you're not sure about something, needles pop up, things like that, you want some clarification on maybe a strength program or something like that, get it checked out by someone who knows. Next time, hopefully everyone comes again next time. I have a couple more ways to advertise and things like that, but how to treat any last minute niggles that crop up is one of the ones that we talked about there. It's a very popular one at the moment on Facebook. The biggest mistakes to make in the last 4 weeks, we'll talk about there, and then is it safe to run through pain, which is a really, really interesting topic in that there's actually a couple of things, actually a couple of very specific injuries where it's really not good to run through pain. There's a couple where it's actually okay to have some pain. So hopefully that answers a few questions there. I think that's us tonight for the discount code. If anyone wants to take a photo of that, or hopefully pretty easy to remember.
Case sensitive, guys, I think.
Case sensitive.
How long does it last? You?
Yeah.
How long does it last?
Oh, up until race day. Cool. A few days before, so make the most.
Has anyone got any questions sort of straight at the back there? Hopefully it hasn't been too short or too long.
You mentioned weight training. Were you talking about in a gym or like doing hill training or sprinting or just heavy load? Or
In a gym, yeah.
You're talking weight gym.
If you've got a well set up home gym, then you can do it there, but yeah. In a commercial. No, yeah. Like, so in that particular study, and in a lot of the studies, the group that was doing normal running training was doing interval training. So they were doing hill reps and they were doing track sessions and all that. So they were already doing like running strength work. They were doing their hill reps. But compared to the guys who actually lifted heavy weights in the gym, they stayed the same at their 5K time. The guys who actually go to a gym and lifted heavy weights twice a week got a lot quicker. Yeah. So yeah, weights. Yeah.
Really common in the cycling world. There's a lot of researchers in the cycling world, and yeah, I granted out a big gear for 2 minutes. That's strength work. If it's 2 minutes, it's not strength work. Yeah, it would be a big load.
And it also reduces
low working.
It also reduces your injury risk like quite substantially compared to most other stuff. So it's kind of double bang for your buck. Obviously, you've got to be a little bit safe in there, and if you've got no background in a gym, as I didn't not that long ago at all, simple exercises, and you really can't go wrong.
The cool thing as well is you don't need to do much to get stronger. That's the cool thing. Do the right thing, like if you don't have experience in the gym, 1 or 2 key movements and you'll bring the benefits. It's not a matter of doing a massive program through there as well.
And 8 weeks out, there's still time to get the benefits from it is one of the
Absolutely.
And in the 9-week example, hopefully that's kind of proven to everybody.
Any specific injury questions, guys? Anyone got any specific injuries at the moment? Anything that tends to pop up just before a race?
Yeah. Healthy.
No way. Come on, at least it's to the sound of you. All right, come on. There we go.
Ankles, knees.
Yeah, I mean, most things in runners tend to be knees down. Yeah, that's where they most.
What might be some examples of strength exercises or weights to do?
Everybody gets the leg press.
Yeah,
it depends on the person. What interests you, what you're good at, how, if you have a bit of an irritation somewhere or an injury, what does your injury tolerate exposure to? You might not like that, a leg press, you might like that, things like that. It really depends on the person. And most of all, what you're interested in as well. That's what you have to do at the end of that.
But yeah, if someone's never been in a gym before and I had to give them 3 exercises, it'd be like a really simple calf raise, a really simple leg press, and maybe like a hamstring exercise. Keep it really, really simple. You only need 3 heavy exercises. But there's a lot of it depends in that. A lot of it.
What about recovery after a really long run?
Sleep, nutrition, hydration. Yeah.
The 30-minute window is usually something that you go off. Has everyone heard of that? With regards to, so you've used an energy tank, you've burnt most of your stores of carbohydrates at least. You have, it's about 18 minutes, but it's up to 30 minutes where your body's really highly absorbent. So you want to get something like, the perfect example is chocolate milk.
Yeah.
Milk. A really good balance of carbohydrate, fat, and protein. Yeah, and then getting within that window to absorb it.
There are a few of those little things that I mentioned that can reduce some of that next day muscle soreness by a bit. So like some of the massage techniques and some of the ice baths can reduce a little bit of muscle soreness. But yeah, most of us in here, like myself included, Dan included, we're 10% people. We don't really have the time to go home and do all that kind of stuff because we've got kids, we've got jobs, blah, 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 blah. So drink,
Yeah, haven't told us about that.
yeah, drink water, refuel, and sleep as well.
So is that 30-minute rule quite legit, where you should take it straight away after the exercise?
Yeah, I think a dietitian will be able to get like the specifics of the papers and things like that.
Or an
But,
exercise. The sooner the better, I imagine, with nutrition. Yeah, the sooner the better.
So like an hour later, is it 50%?
Still good.
Something small.
Yeah, have a banana in the car,
Yeah.
just straight away up.
The status quo is exercise, specifically running without weight bearing, is an appetite suppressant. So a lot of people use that. So you kind of force yourself to eat after running in particular. And I guess kind of on that topic, there was a relatively recent study with regards to weight loss in running, and they got a group. So they got 2 groups. One group to exercise before having breakfast, one group to do it after having breakfast. Both ran the same over, I think it was 12 weeks. And the group pre-breakfast lost significantly more weight than the group after breakfast, and their lean muscle was like significant. So it's a bit of stuff with that.
Cool. Fantastic. Thanks for coming, guys. Make sure you come back in 4 weeks' time. Yeah, and hopefully you're all injury free. If anyone, like if you've got to shoot off, go for it. If anyone wants to hang around, we've got a little bit of kind of running analysis technology that we're kind of lucky enough to use here. Probably more for injured athletes, because there's some pretty good research on rehabilitating injured, like if you've got an injury, being able to look at things like your ground contact time, your left foot versus your right foot, your spring capacity in your left foot versus your right foot. And we get to a bit of that stuff in here where they're injured runners. So yeah, if you want to hang around, we can definitely show you a bit of that. But don't feel bad about leaving.
So they're easy people.
No, not at all.
So apologies for the
Terrible runner.
But okay, so if we have a look at, so we use a bit of software in the clinic. It's from Germany. We use a bit of Activ technology, and basically we have some super high speed cameras. The camera position is a bit less than optimal in this one, but we have the cameras where we can capture running form and basic mechanics there. But I'm going to show you in a second the most interesting part of it is that we have some really sensitive pressure reading systems in the feet as well. So you got that little backpack wearing as well. So if you just if you guys guide yourself to the left photo, so if we have a look at sort of from a running, start from the top down, you have a look at, well, the head's pretty still, the trunk's relatively stable as well, good arm drive, terrible choice in clothing, but the hips are relatively still, nothing of a forwards and backwards oscillation there. If you guys have a look at foot strike as well, and a bit of knee swing. From a basic running point of view, you say, oh, not too much done there. To give you a bit of a background, so this is me, give you a bit of background. I've had left side Achilles problems for years after some mismanagement when I was a younger track runner, had a fibular stress fracture, and I was told to not do anything for almost a year. So left-sided chain or left side of the body is a bit less than the right in terms of strength and capacity, endurance, all that kind of stuff. So you have a look from that example, you go, okay, well, you can't really see, if I slow it down, many sort of deficits in the chain. Looks pretty springy. Cadence could use a little bit of work, maybe overstriding there a little bit. But if you have a look from now, this is the pressure sensors in the feet, so left and right.
So the maximum button.
Oh, there it is. Oh, gotcha. Cool. Easy. So if you actually have a look at what we always tell our bike patients as well, you can't see the matters with regards to pressure stability and where the pressure is being distributed. You have a look at on that left side, so the history of Achilles problems on that side. You know, the Achilles is connected to the calf muscles, obviously. There's not as much push up on this side. Okay. So from we talk about the legs as a functional unit called a spring. So the spring capacity on that side, the spring on this function on that side relative to the right is a lot less. And if you dive a bit deeper with regards to strength testing, capacity across sides is significantly different. The left side is like 35% down compared to the right. So that it's just a really nice example, a clear example to say, hey, if you're managing an injury, get it looked at in not only a static sense of an assessment, but a bit of a dynamic sense as well, and work out where's the gaps in the system, where's the gaps in the chain. The really nice thing as well is then that carries over to performance-wise as well. If we can improve that left plantar flexor strength, then we can probably improve symptoms, and we can probably improve your performance as well through increasing spring capacity.
So probably
their foot spends a good couple of milliseconds longer on the ground, like in contact with the ground, than his right foot does.
Just before you jump off that, Dan, I think probably the two key differences there. So when we talk about a spring, if you think about what happens if you were to jump up and down on a spot or if you were to hop, you sort of visualise you on your toes, you're bouncing along, and your Achilles is to help keeping your heel up off. Now you see on the left-hand side, there's more pressure at the back, more brighter colours, the lighter blues at the back, and there's less pressure up at the front. Look at the right side, you see that 20.1 pressing to his big toe there? That's where we should be pushing off. That's where our big powerful muscles are. So on the left-hand side, he's hitting harder on his heel, so his spring's not working well, and he's not getting through onto his big toe to drive himself off very well there, and that affects things up the chain as well. But again, as Dan said, when you looked at the video, he was running, what was it, 19 k's an hour or so getting along okay without any pain. So, but someone who's aspiring to a pretty fast marathon in the near future, these things matter.
That's what you can't see.
Now you've got to go into analysis. That's it.
There you go. So if you have a look at, contact column there. So on that left side, 0.01 of a second long on the ground. So spring capacity, that much of a difference makes a big difference. It makes a massive difference.
It's also one of the key indicators in running performance, guys, like how efficient a runner you are is the shorter amount of time that your foot spends on the ground, generally the more efficient or faster runner you are. So Dan's right leg is the faster runner than his left.
And if we have a look at frequency, how many contact points per minute? So you times by 2, left and right, about 160-ish steps per minute. So that's significantly less than the gold standard. Yes, we're running a bit slower than Kipchoge, but these guys actually still tick along at 175 to 180 at their pace. So certainly cadence can use some work there as well. So just interesting stuff to think about. And this is not just applicable to people who are trying to run a marathon or run lots or anything like that. It's applicable to the general population. Literally anyone can jump on. We're going to try and get some fun tonight. Technology-wise, might take us a little bit to set it up there and let everyone get off for dinner. But yeah, so food for thought there is a really nice way to identify gaps in the system and improve not only performance but with regards to injury risk and injury prevention. Some really nice things highlighted.
How does the assessment pathway work for this? Is it initial assessment followed by a training program and then come back for another assessment, or is it?
Yeah, so very much like the 5-year process. Come in, we'll have a bit of a chat about your history, get into some specific spring or strength assessments, and then have a look at some basic spring tasks, like the leg tasks, and then get you running, have a look, and then collate that information. That's kind of the important part as well. Collate that information and say, okay, what elements of your training can we benefit from tinkering your training, and then adding in things like that. And from that, whatever's applicable, adding. So whether it's a strength exercise or 2 or 3, probably not 5, but 2 or 3, things like that. Recommendations moving forward, and also kind of general comments from an injury risk management point of view on load, so like your total mileage, your frequencies. Because I guess a really good example is we've had quite a few people come in with they're really good runners, but they do 5 days in a work, really high intensity work, and they have technical problems. And it's really clear. It's not that you just need to do a different exercise, like just to work better. So some general advice there. So it depends on what you get out of the assessment, the pathway moving forward.
Yeah. So if you want to see a physio here for like a running assessment or like running injury, it kind of feels a bit like you're catching up with a coach. You know, we'll dive deep into your running program and how you're managing your load. We'll show you some strength exercises. Yeah, I'd say it might be a little bit different to some other physio consults that you might have been to before. We tend to try and focus on the stuff that works really well.
If you have an injury, obviously we'll have a look at that as well. So
Yeah.
just time management-wise. If you have an injury or no injury, so we can allocate the right time as well.
Thank you for coming, guys. If anyone wants to come chat to any of us afterwards, Damien up there as well, then please hang around, come chat. We'll give you a card if you want our contact details. More than happy to field any questions.
Awesome.
Thanks for coming, guys.